Word. All right, Smile, you're on candid camera. Let's do this. All right, so a little bit of personal history from me. I taught at North Middle School for 9 years, English language arts most of that time. I also taught a couple sections of social studies here and there, a little bit of reading here and there. But I found out about Khan Academy through a TED Talk, as you do. And I realized that what Sal Khan had done was he helped, if you don't know the story, I believe it was his niece or his nephew was having trouble with math. And so he started making these videos and he just posted it on YouTube so that it was free to anyone who wanted to access it. And I was like, dude, that's brilliant. I want to do that. So I started doing that for my classes. And I realized that I was really tired of writing the same example paragraph 6 times a day. So I would get under the document camera and I'd write out the paragraph. And by the sixth time I'd done that in a day, I couldn't remember if I had made the same mistake that I had meant to make in the first place. And I couldn't remember if I had corrected it. And I couldn't remember if I'd told the same thing to first period as I was telling to sixth period. Because, over the course of your day, your lessons tend to morph and improve as you go. So I realized that if I record what I'm doing, then I only have to write the paragraph once and my life becomes much simpler. So I ended up diving deep into creating my own videos. And my thought was, if I'm going to do like Sal Khan and put this out on the internet, I want to look like I know what I'm doing. So I invested in a green screen. I invested in little lavalier mics, and I had a whole lighting setup, and I got way too deep, way too fast. And I found out that when it comes to video production equipment, there's a reason that movies cost millions of dollars to make them look the way they do. And I didn't have the time or the money or the energy or the know-how to do that. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you today is born of years of don't do that. Okay. So with that in mind, my learning intention for you today, at the end of this session, I would like you to have a plan, not an actual video. I would like you to have a plan for a 3-minute instructional video. That plan should include 3 things: direct instruction, modeling, and next steps. Okay? When you move into video-based instruction, there's a couple of things that need to happen to your mindset. One, you need to remember that you can use your videos in a face-to-face class. You are not limited to only using them when students are not in front of you. What I did in my own classroom was I created my example of how to write a paragraph, or if we were working on an essay, I would break up my videos down into small chunks and have a series, and I would ask students to watch the video in class. And that way I could pull a couple of them and work with them individually while everyone else is occupied with the video. So it freed up a lot of time for me. And if a student didn't get a concept, I could say, hey, it's video X in this series. And I could direct them to a very specific skill that I taught on video. And if they watch the video again, they can either rewatch it at their leisure, or if they really aren't getting it, then I can provide point of need instruction. Another thing, and I mentioned this in the previous session, you can archive those videos for future use. So I've got some videos from me from back in, when I'm a little, younger and less gray and slightly more hair. And now I'm rewatching them and I'm slightly depressed watching them. But I can reuse those if I go back in the classroom. And now, an advantage that you have that I did not have at the time is a learning management system. Especially in secondary, you've either got Google Classroom or Canvas, and both of those systems work beautifully for getting those videos out to students, whether they're face-to-face, distance learning entirely, or you're just working with them on those remote Fridays. So you can use these materials regardless of whether they're face-to-face or remote. Second thing that needs to happen, KISS it. For those of you know, what does KISS stand for as an acronym?
Keep it simple, stupid.
That's the one. So remember how I said that I got into whole green screen and everything? Guess what? I'm on Zoom. I've got stars behind me. I don't need a green screen to do that anymore. So you have some tools that are much more powerful and allow you to make your videos look very professional without a ton of effort on your side. So you can keep it very simple. They do not need to be fancy and edited and all kinds of flashy. You can do that if you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. By all means, if you're willing to invest the time, go for it. But it doesn't have to be flashy. Content over form. The other piece is you can use organic videos. In other words, I'm talking about holding your phone out in front of you as you walk through the store. You can have some very organic lessons that are real world applications, and you can use that in an instructional process. So we'll talk about that more in just a few minutes, but you don't have to be super fancy and flashy. Just a walk and talk with your cell phone will work. 5 minutes in front of your computer with Zoom recording, that'll work. It doesn't need to be over the top. All right. Quick thumbs up if you recognize the picture on the side. Yes, you are my people. Thank you. So I put this up because if you remember the scene from from Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, he needs to count to 3 for the holy hand grenade of Antioch. 3 minutes is the sweet spot for videos. You can go up to 5. You can go as small as 1, but 3 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. It's really hard to get a good lesson across in less than 3 minutes. But if you're going longer than that, it's getting too complex and students tend to lose track. On average, as you can see on the slide here, on average, your average YouTube video, only about 30% of any given video is actually watched. If that's YouTube, where they get to choose the content, what happens when they're required to watch your videos? So short and sweet is better. I do have a couple of links here. Colby, if you haven't already, could you drop those in the chat for me?
I have a question, Jim.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So if I teach art and I'm trying to record myself doing something, but I need my hands to do those things, what do you recommend for equipment?
We can talk about that in the Q&A at the end. Remind me again at the end and we'll talk about that. Okay. We got a couple. I do have a couple of solutions for you. Okay. So that Screencast-O-Matic link, that comes from their tutorials. And if you have access to the Canvas course, you'd be able to click that link directly in the embedded slideshow. The Screencast-O-Matic tutorials, there are dozens of them. And almost all of them talk about keeping things very short and keeping things very concentrated. Step 2, or another thing that you need to keep in mind, is to plan out your lesson. It's okay to have direct instruction. In fact, in remote learning, it's very important to have that direct instruction, especially for those that are learning something brand new. Direct instruction is a strategy that works most effectively for skills that students are new to. So they need to know how to do it. And if you, I came across a statistic that on YouTube, 51% of videos on YouTube are how-to tutorials. So there's a lot of there's a lot of support for that direct instruction. But once you have given that direct instruction, showing them that worked example is how you got to that finished product. So the direct instruction is not just here, do this, do this, do this, do this. You actually need to do it for them. Go ahead and do the project. For me personally, like I said, when I was teaching English, I would actually write the paragraph and I would model that thinking process. I would go through this entire steps, or all steps, of how do I get the idea, how do I put it on paper, how do I move from one idea to the next. I would have to think that stuff all out loud. And recording myself doing that was how I was able to give that instruction in a way that made sense to them later. When you're working that lesson plan, you show them how to do it, and then you give them that worked example. Show them what success looks like. Show them what you want it to look like. Show them what they should be producing. And then at the end of that video, tell them what to do. So like for my videos, I would write I would go through the process of modeling the paragraph, and then I would have a still at the end of the actual paragraph. And then I would say, now it's your turn. I need you to go write a paragraph about X. So they need all three of those pieces. They need the direct instruction. They need to be shown how to do it, and then they need to be told what to do. That TechSmith link is a link to the site that runs Camtasia, very high-end screencasting software. They have a lot of training on how to create screencasts. If you look at that page, all of their tutorial videos, 3 minutes or less. So if you're working with if you're looking at a company that's like their whole job is teaching people to use their software to train people, it works in our world as well. Okay, so 3 steps in planning your lesson. Go ahead and use your existing lesson plans with your standards, your learning targets, and then that direct instruction and modeling, that I do component. Have that in place. You don't have to come up with something brand new. You can use your existing lesson plans and just record what you're doing. Have in mind any lesson materials that you'll need. So like Casey, if you're working on your art, what supplies are they going to need? Be ready to have that on hand so you don't have to do a lot of editing later. Believe it or not, simple costumes, a pair of sunglasses goes a long way, or a hat, or a magic 8-ball prop. There's a lot of things that you can do to make your videos more interesting. But if you want to use those pieces, think about that ahead of time and make that part of your plan. Choose your apparatus. And Casey, this is where we were talking. This is what I was mentioning there. How are you going to record your video? Walking and talking with your phone works. Setting up your phone on some sort of like a PVC stand. You can use that. A document camera. Using whatever camera that you happen to have on hand, you can use those. Recording with screencasting software at your Promethean board works as well. That one's actually kind of cool because you end up with a whiteboard and just the text magically shows up when you're working on that. Document cameras like Active Inspires or Active Views or Elmos. You can use any of those in the process. I would recommend that when you do that, take a look and figure out where the edge of the camera is. I used to take a little piece of blue painter's tape and kind of make a frame for where the edge of the camera's field of view was. And that way I could make sure that whatever I was working on stayed within the camera. Because you ever seen those tutorials where half the stuff they're doing is off the side of the camera and they still post the video anyways? Try not to do that. And then when you plan your video, I do recommend writing a script if you can. Sometimes you need that organic development, like writing a paragraph. But if you can write a script ahead of time, do. Rule of thumb is 1 page of size 12 font will give you about a minute of narration, give or take. So if you're looking for 3 pages, or if you're looking for 3 minutes, don't write more than about 3 pages of text, and you should be in good shape. Having a storyboard so that you know what you want your finished video to look like, that can help you cut down on your editing. For me personally, editing was a time suck. If you can record your videos in one shot, that's going to go a lot better than I'm going to do this and then I'm going to stitch it together with this and then stitch it together with this. Trying to get it all in 1 3-minute shot is going to be more effective, because what I found when I was producing my videos and like laying text over and zooming in and highlighting and using a lot of higher end editing software, I was going at a rate of 1 minute of video took me about 45 minutes to produce. So if you can cut down on your editing time, planning will help you with that. Colby's dropping a storyboard template. It's just a really generic one that I kind of halfway copied. But pretty much just having an idea of what you want your image or what you want to show up on the screen, and then what you want to say. So where it says shot, that's what's on the screen, and then script, what you want to say.
So when I picture myself doing this, I imagine a camera over my shoulder looking at my hands.
Okay.
I'm either using clay or paint or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, because a lot of times these projects take more than 3 minutes, more like an hour. How can I do that and high speed it up and get to the end result all in 3 minutes?
Break it down.
So I have primarily Mac experience, and I have iPhoto, which I'm not super proficient with, but I can figure it out. And I'm thinking it'd be so awesome if I could just suspend my phone right here, do the lesson, speed it up, condense it all down into, a short 2 or 3 minute deal, and then it'll keep them moving forward for, say, 2 days or whatever it may be.
So what I would do in your situation is, I assume that you are working with some specific techniques. And if you're working on a large project, I would do your instructional video around the specific technique. So like, I'm afraid I'm not an art teacher. I'm digging way back to middle school on this, but like cross-hatching to join 2 pieces of clay. That's your 3-minute video. This is how you join the clay. And then have another video for another piece of the technique, glazing or whatever the next part is. If you wanted to have the whole project as like a time lapse, that would make a really engaging video, but that wouldn't necessarily be your direct instruction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just feel like even as a teacher, when I'm looking for a demonstration, because I don't have the time to make the videos, I find out that, I'm not picking anything over 3 minutes long, just because if I'm going to lose interest, they will.
Yep.
And a lot of times I find myself picking something around 3 to 5 minutes because I can't find anything shorter. And I'll say, okay, watch the beginning, fast forward through the middle, cruise to the end. And it's so impersonal.
So what you do is you get very specific and very concrete with the exact skill that you want them to see. The overall project is a culmination of those individual skills, right? So while having the whole project, seeing that time lapse, personally, I would watch that video. I'm a total nerd like that though too. But if you are looking to have them use individual skills within the larger project, I think that's going to be where you're going to save your time, being very specific about what that 3-minute video includes, and then go ahead and have a separate camera or on a separate, do the whole project as one, but like show the individual skill in a separate instructional video. It's better to have a series of short instructional videos and then one time lapse of your project than to try to do, here's the whole project. Oh, wait, I got to slow this down. Now I got to speed it back up. Now I got to slow it back down. That's where you're going to get bogged down in the editing.
For editing, what do you recommend?
That's going to be a highly personal choice. For me personally, I use iPhone, and within my iPhone, I've got both iMovie, and I just use the actual editor within the photo album. Like I can split my videos, or I can trim them there, and then I like to use InShot for my Instagram videos. However, I just learned today that I can use Flipgrid to do a lot of the same editing that you can use in InShot, or if you're familiar with TikTok, some of the same stuff you can use in some of the same effects that you can use in TikTok, you can do in Flipgrid as well. I'm not familiar with what your options are if you're an Android user. I do know
have
that
an iPhone, so
yeah.
that's helpful because it's smooth
Yep.
with the Mac, but
Yep. I know that there are simple free video editors available. I'm not familiar with which ones would be most efficient for you. I do have a couple of examples. You can use social media to get inspired, to get an idea of what is currently being used in students like Orbit. Personally, I found TikTok this summer and immediately lost 2 months of my life to TikTok. But if you're not familiar with it, TikTok limits you to 1 minute. You get 1 minute. That's it. You can lip sync to different sounds, or you can create your own sounds, and then you can lay effects like a strobing effect, or put text up on the screen. But if you watch a few of those videos, you'll get a sense of what is possible, and how those videos can look and what is engaging to students. Plus, you also look like you're on the pulse. So, let's see. Colby just dropped a couple of links in the chat from TikTok. I'll go ahead and give you a minute to look those up. You don't need an account or anything to watch them. I do want to caution you. I don't recommend that you post your material on TikTok and ask students to visit yours if you choose to create an account. There is plenty of 18+ material on that app, but this is a couple of examples of the types of video that you could create very quick, very easy to produce in a short amount of time. So I'll give you a couple minutes to check those out real quick.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but isn't TikTok just the new version of Musical.ly?
That's exactly what it is.
So shouldn't we? I mean, I know the kids are all preoccupied with it, but it almost seems like something you should avoid.
So I'm saying to use this for inspiration. I'm not saying that you need to create or to distribute through this app.
Yeah, I just avoid it altogether. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm too old for this. I can't even look at this stuff. I don't even want to know. Don't show me.
Personally, that science practical joke one, the first one on the list there, that's one of my favorite videos, just because it's such a perfect example of how science can be used out in the real world for mostly good. I'll go ahead and pull you back in. I have a list of pointers and pitfalls when it comes to creating video. Your instructional video, have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously, and that's part of why I included these examples from TikTok, because a lot of what's on there is people not taking themselves so seriously. They're having a little bit of fun with it. Costumes and such go a long way. Planning limits your takes. So if you can plan in advance, looking at your lesson plan that you're already going to do in your face-to-face class, probably the first 2 parts of it, you're good to go. That'll be the only part that you'll need to include in your video. When you limit those takes, when you limit the number of times you have to do it, that helps with that time management, and then that pays dividends later on. Time invested in creating these videos will give you time in class. And we'll show you later about ways to distribute those videos. But really what we're doing here is we're creating a medium that students are already familiar with. And we're using a platform, or we're using a medium that is going to save you time by you not having to manage the students as they're watching those individual videos. You can reuse them later. And as I mentioned before, if you've got a skill that you've already explicitly shown, it saves you time because you can direct them back to that individual video. Also, I mentioned here that if you upload your videos to YouTube, there's an automatic caption generator, which is really useful for that universal design for learning. So it helps with that accessibility. Me personally, I'm not officially hard of hearing, like I don't have a diagnosis, but I like to watch TV with the captions on because I have a hard time always hearing, and having that at least available for students is a good move. Some pitfalls, and I've already seen this. I've heard it. I've heard it on a couple of occasions where some teachers are saying they're spending upwards of 4 hours creating 10 minutes worth of video. Planning is going to help you with that. Do be aware of your copyrights when you're creating video, especially if you're using any kind of music. If you're keeping it simple, you don't have to. You don't have to worry about that. But like, for instance, we had some elementary school teachers wanting to do read alouds for their students, which is fantastic, until they try to put it on YouTube. If you try to take a published work, even if you're reading a text, and you put it on a public medium like YouTube for everyone to see, you're actually violating copyright. We do have a couple of caveats with fair use, but we want to be aware of what you're doing with your copyrights. Perfectionism and professionalism, for me, that was a huge downfall, because like I said, I wanted my videos to look like they were professionally produced. I've gotten away from that because I like to go home at night and I like weekends. So do be professional about it. I mean, you don't want to be swearing, and be aware of what's in your background. But you also, it doesn't have to be perfect, and your students will, especially if it's a more organic video, students will respond to that. And another pitfall there is privacy. You do need to pay attention, especially if you're like recording in class. You don't want to show students' faces. You want to be very aware of FERPA, the Federal Education Rights Protection, I believe. But we want to make sure that we are aware of our limitations legally. So this session is supposed to run to 5:40, and I wanted to give you some time to take a look at one of your upcoming lessons, and see if there's some space in there where you would be able to record just that direct instruction and modeling component. So I want to give you some space to do that and also open it up to Q&A if we need to.
Another question, is YouTube the only way to share video, or can you just make video and share it via Canvas or something else?
So we'll talk about that in the distribution session, but you can use YouTube to share outside of Canvas. If you have it in Canvas, you can get a direct link. It will be okay if you create just in Studio. Since you're at the high school, it'll be okay to create entirely in Canvas. To me, that'll simplify your distribution process considerably.
What if you wanted to like create this for yourself? Say you want to, teach college someday, and you know how people start their own channel or whatever, but does it have to be YouTube, or are there other platforms?
So YouTube is going to be your most ubiquitous platform. If I was creating my own materials just for me personally, I would use YouTube because it's so well known and free storage and easy for others to access. I would keep the raw video on an external hard drive at my house. But if it's something that I wanted to reuse in the future, hanging on to both media or both platforms, I think would probably be your best bet. So Colby brought up that there's a question from earlier about swivels. That I'm going to have to direct back to your school's digital educator. I don't know much about swivels. We had Rod and Trent in here. Maybe they'd be able to speak to that.
You want to talk, Trent, or do you want? Well, I can go ahead and start. Swivel, it's a free. You can get the free account online. It's most teachers will set that up with their K-12 email, and there's an app that you put on the iPad. It records and you keep it in there. I don't know if Trent, are there limitations on the space on that free account or not, but it is pretty user-friendly, kind of like what Screencast-O-Matic is. You store it online, you can get a shareable link, that kind of thing. Trent, you want to piggyback on that?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with storing it on there because I always was putting it in other things like Canvas or on YouTube. But I think your question was how to keep it from jumping around. Was that the question?
Yeah, that's right. So I made a video with the swivel, and it like was real squirrely. When the kids are watching, it like makes them seasick.
Okay, and is that when the swivel is actually moving itself, or is it the video itself somehow being shaky?
No, it's so my phone's sitting in the swivel and it's moving.
Yeah,
and I'm not moving. I'm just standing at the board working something out.
Yeah, I think what happens is even though you don't feel like you're moving, there is some movement because that's all detected via IR, infrared light. And so it's picking up some type of movement, even though you may not be taking steps. That microphone moves a little bit. So one of the things I've done in the past was actually, if I was going to be standing at a board and just filming what I was doing at the board, I would kind of like tape the remote on the edge of my Promethean board and just leave it there. And then that way I knew it wasn't moving. And that seemed to help a lot. If I was being pretty aggressive on the board would shake just enough that the video would go back and forth a little bit, but that eliminated 85% of the problems I had. If it's doing it massive amounts, we might want to look into whether there's an issue with that unit or not. I do remember seeing, I think somebody had one that it didn't matter what you did, it was just back and forth the whole time, and it was a defective unit, I believe. So I guess give that first suggestion a try, see if that helps you out. And if it doesn't, then contact one of us and we'll pursue it further.
Thanks, Trent. That's a good pointer. I had the thing in my pocket, so I'm going to try taping it on the board.
Yeah, I have a feeling that'll help you.
Okay, so I've got on the presentation here some worked examples, and these are ones that I mostly pulled from YouTube. The last one is one that I did off of the parent app for Canvas. This presentation is available to you in the Canvas course. So you should be able to advance to this slide and you'd be able to get to those specific links. So it is 5:40 now, and I want to respect your time. The next session doesn't start until 5:45, so you got a couple of minutes. I did see a couple people requesting a room transfer, so I will go ahead and start those transfers now. Thank you for attending this session, and we'll see you after a bit.